what we do in some areas that we don't have a lot of exposures, we have to do core drilling. And core drilling provides us that window into the rocks that we normally don't get a good look at. Like, for instance, out in the Pomona Quad, we saw all those trees and bushes. In an area like that, we may want to drill, because if we don't have a good understanding of the rocks in there, we'll put a hole down, and we usually go about 300 feet. 300 to 400 feet depending, and that usually helps us figure out what the stratigraphy is. So what we have here is a box core from about 200 feet down below the Earth's surface, and we have sandstones right here, and those sandstones then grade into a shaly unit. It starts going, as you go down, you can start to see these dark banding, dark and light bands, or gray and black bands. That's shale. So you're changing from a sandstone into a shale right here, and in fact in this particular area it's very, very shaly. You can actually see what we call zebra rock, which it kind of looks like the striping of a zebra. Okay, that's just a descriptive term that we use. What it is just sandstone and shale intermixed. So we know we've got interbedded sandstones and shales, and in the area that we may not have seen. In fact, a lot of times the shales don't outcrop very well. Okay, and then eventually we come all the way through that shaly sand back into a sandstone right here. So this is a very nice coarse-grained sandstone that we drill. So anyway, this core will tell us the stratigraphy of that area. Every once in a while, we'll find an interesting limestone that we may want to look at, and so we cut it up, we bring it into the lab, and it's very important to do lab work as a part of the mapping as well. This X just means that's the side you want to polish, and then you apply that onto a glass slide with epoxy, and once that glass slide adheres to the rock, then we cut it with a machine into a nice thin and polish it, so you get a wafer thin piece of rock. This is a thin section. That means it's a very thin slice of rock that was taken from the core. It's about 30 microns thick, as I said, and it will yield secrets that are locked up in the rock. We'll find fossils in there, or certain types of minerals. It just depends on the rock type. But this is a part of making a map as well, knowing the details that you can get out of the rock material besides just mapping and describing the rock with our naked eye. We use the aid of a microscope, and the microscope will tell us a lot of different things: age, and like I said, mineralogy, and also the relationship of the grains to each other. A real vital part of the mapping is also having someone in the lab. So we need a lab tech, a person that will actually take the rock and the core, cut it down, get it to the chips. It's very time consuming. It's also very costly to send these out, so we try to do everything in-house. And so the lab tech is vital for the mapping program as well. And a lot of times the lab tech will give you indications like, oh my, there's fluoride in this sample, or oh, there's good fuselinids in here, So he'll give you an indication of where you can go to the library and look a lot of this type of stuff up. The number one tool for the geologist is his training, his background. It's very, very important to have a good background, because there's so much information that you have to know to be able to produce a good geologic map, to be able to describe the rock, to be able to describe the core, to be able to look at the thin section and interpret that thin section. That takes years of education in college and interest. Very difficult to make a geologic map. If you go outside, say for instance you want to map your own backyard. You go outside and try to map your own backyard, and you realize all of a sudden, wow, there's some neat things out there, but you don't know what to do. You don't know how to describe them. And that takes book learning and also field experience to be able to do that type of thing, to actually be able to produce a geologic map.